down. We the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to another episode of the Scoreboard. We are into the Divisional Round. We had some crazy games in the wildcard round that we're going to talk about. But 4 more games this week, and it's going to be a big week. Have some good matchups. Maybe some slight surprises, but mostly what we did expect in a sense. So, Smokey, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Better than Bucks fans right now, because not only did you get stomped out in the playoffs, but you're probably losing Tom Brady, which may actually be a good thing considering how the season went this week. But yeah, I don't think Tom Brady's coming back to the Bucks next year, and I am glad to see them out of the playoffs.
I need Tom Brady to go to the Raiders exactly, and nothing but the Raiders. Only thing I'll accept. I don't know. I mean, Derek Carr's gone. He'll have to go. I mean, if he wants to play, he needs to go somewhere. I don't know. Like, who's gonna take him?
He's probably gonna want to go somewhere that can contend, somewhere that has a good receivers. When he picked the Bucks, he knew they had a super team on offense down there, and he actually added to it. He talked him into signing Fournette when he got down there. But yeah. I don't think he ends up with the Jets or something like that. It's probably going to be someone that can contend right now. I guess the Colts are an option because they still have a pretty decent offensive line when everyone's healthy, and they do have capable weapons there. I don't know that the Raiders are that team, but there is Devontae Adams there that might be enticing to him. He does tend to love those types of wide receivers, you know. Remember what he went through to get Antonio Brown down there in Tampa.
Oh, yeah. And New England, too.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta wonder with the Colts, though, if they're maybe just a bit burned out of these, like, old aging quarterbacks, kind of letting them down. I don't know. Baby debate for during the offseason. I know Tampa Bay is gonna maybe even want just to re-sign him for another year. We'll see how all that actually ends up. But we have 4 games this week, and we're going to discuss them, go through them, give our picks. I assume that, do you want to quickly talk about the results from last week?
Yeah, we can. Actually, it was a great week for me. I mean, we only disagreed on one. That was the Jags and Chargers. And as much as I thought I lost that in the first half, they actually came. Yeah, they came back and pulled it off. And the Chargers were bad in the second half of that game, and the Jags were wonderful. Like, it was just the tale of two halves there. If they would have stopped at halftime, the Chargers blew them out. But unfortunately, it's a 4-quarter game, and the Jags killed them, which gave me overall a perfect score on the week. I got 6 correct, and you got 5 correct.
Yeah, that was a bad showing, and consequences already have been drawn. The Chargers have fired their offensive coordinator and their quarterback's coach, probably rightfully so. Head coach, I don't know, what are you going to do with it? He's a defensive specialist, remember, and to give up 30 points in one half in a playoff game doesn't look too good to me, but it was just a coaching failure all around in the second half, and that's something that needs to change. You have an incredibly talented roster. You have top 5 quarterback who can definitely get the team deeper into the playoffs, but it needs to be coached properly. So a lot of things need to change there. It was about time. They've been underachieving now for 3 years. Ever since Herbert came, they've underachieved. Remember, he was a top 5 quarterback basically out the gate. Yeah. From the very first game he started, he was elite. And this is the first time they've even made the playoffs with him, which is hard to imagine. Imagine like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes never made the playoffs for something. It doesn't happen, right? Because they have like a kind of a base of decent coaching and play calling, at least for them. So a lot of things need to change for the Chargers. The future is looking good, but these changes were desperately needing to happen. So we'll see who's going to be responsible for the offense there next year, hopefully. Because I like the Chargers. I want to see them succeed. Hopefully it's going to be something good. But the Jaguars made it, and they're actually playing the first of the divisional games this week at Kansas City, number 1 seed.
This is so tough because I want nothing more. Well, there are some things I want more, but I would love to see an underdog Super Bowl this year. Jags versus Giants. That would make me completely happy.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be so wonderful. I think the Jags are good enough to get a win here because it's not absolutely impossible to beat the Chiefs, even though they are probably one of the top 3 teams in the entire NFL, and they're coming off of a bye. Now, maybe that plays into the Jags' favor, that they still have the momentum coming off of the second half of that game and their win streak that they've had for quite some time now, and the Chiefs are coming off of a bye. We've seen that happen a lot over the past probably 5 or 6 years, that the team coming off of the bye actually drop one, even though they should be rested at that point. And that'll also play into the next pick. But as for right now, I want it to happen. I'm going to cheer for the Jags to win, but I have to pick the Chiefs because it's just overwhelming odds.
See, the Jaguars, there's 2 Jaguars teams we could see, right, in this game. So we could see first half Jaguars from the last game, which means they're going to get blown out. In fact, the only reason that the Jaguars didn't get blown out is because the Chargers choked it away on all sides of the ball in the second half. But if Jacksonville shows up the way they've looked at the end of the regular season and in the second half of this game, they can win. They can legitimately win because Trevor Lawrence is every bit the quarterback that Patrick Mahomes is when he's playing at his A level. We've seen it a couple times. We've seen the glimpses, and Doug Peterson is getting the best out of that offense. He's taken them from back-to-back first overall picks to divisional round, a top 4 team in the AFC in one season, and not that much changed. I mean, Lawrence was an impactful pick. Travis Etienne, they came in the same year. They were there with Urban Meyer. Last year's draft was more defensively focused, and it wasn't like a super big impact class or anything. But he's whipped them in shape. They're looking good. But I'm going to go Chiefs because of the consistency problem that I mentioned, right? You don't really know what Jaguars team is going to show up. And yeah, the Chargers choked it away. You can't do this against many teams in the playoffs and get away with it. You cannot turn the ball over 5 times in one half and expect to come back to win. That's like a once in a decade kind of situation, especially in the playoffs. In fact, the first ever playoff game won by a team that has lost turnover differential by 5. So I don't think that's going to happen again. If that happens again, Jacksonville has to show their absolute A game. The Chiefs do that more consistently than Jacksonville does. So also they're playing at home. They're rested for a week. And Jacksonville went through that thriller game. So they'll come in with a slight disadvantage. Now they do have some momentum, but I'm going Chiefs. I think they'll get it done at home. Giants at the Eagles.
This game almost mirrors the AFC game that we just talked about over in the NFC. The Giants are absolutely the underdogs coming into this, and the Eagles are coming off of a bye. Now, do I think the Eagles are as good at this time as a 13-win team should be? I really don't know what to think about that. I think maybe they're not as good as they should be, or not as good as they were in the middle of the season. I know Jalen has been beat up, and coming back, he didn't play his best game there. The only reason he was back on the field is because they absolutely needed that win to get the bye, and that put them in this position. Is the bye going to help them? That's another tough call. Like I just said with the Chiefs, we've seen teams come off of the bye. On the other side of this, Brian Daboll should win Coach of the Year. He has absolutely turned this team around, and using little to no weapons. That wide receiving core is one of the worst in the entire NFL, yet they are winning games with it, thanks to Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and the genius of Brian Daboll. I really like this Giants team. I really want to cheer for them. And I'll tell you what, I didn't do this with the Chiefs. I'm going to do it here. I'm going to take the underdog pick and say the Giants get this one on the road.
Okay, wow. So that's kind of throwing a wrench in my ideas here, because clearly I lost last week. I have to make up a game. Yeah. I was eyeing this matchup as you take the Eagles like automatically, and I'll jump in and take the Giants, because there's a lot of things that actually point in the Giants' favor. Now, they have momentum coming in. They've played the best game of their season. Yeah, the Vikings were frauds. We kind of saw that all along. A lot of people said, I saw some of these takes where the Vikings won 11 1-0 in games that were one score or less.
Yes, they were.
They were one score games, and some people like to turn it into like they're not just lucky. They're something special. Like they're some special clutch G. No, they're lucky. They're lucky in these games. We know how this goes. Like, look at the game against Buffalo, right? How many breaks and turns went the Vikings' way this regular season? The game when they were getting blown out by the Colts.
Yeah.
And then the Colts had the worst second half we've ever seen. They gave up 36 points unanswered. The Vikings won by a field goal. How many times have the Giants on Christmas Eve, they beat the Giants on a walk-off 61-yard field goal. That's like a 25% chance of going in. The Vikings have gotten lucky this entire regular season. Okay, that is a 500 team. Talent-wise, top to bottom, coaching-wise, the defense is bad. The Vikings were the second worst team in the playoffs. I said that last week. Aside from the Buccaneers, they were bad, and they came into the 3 seed for no reason at all. I was rooting for the Vikings in this game because I wanted them to come to San Francisco for the divisional round because I knew that was going to be the easiest opponent. Aside from Tampa Bay, who I didn't think had even a remote chance of winning anyway. But Giants got it done. Props to them. Daniel Jones played really, really well. Fantastic. The offense is doing good. You said the receivers a little bit of a weak spot, but Daniel Jones takes teams apart with his legs. So does Jalen Hurts, though. So
yeah.
I have an additional bold prediction for this, which is that the quarterbacks will combine for over 150 rushing yards in this one. I think that's a good prediction for this matchup. They're playing at Philly. Philly has the same advantages of Kansas City. They're coming in rested. But Jalen Hurts has been injured for a long time. He's not been at 100%. We don't know where he's going to be at. The pass rush is phenomenal. But what generally neutralizes those pass rushers are mobile quarterbacks, right? Keep those edge rushers on their heels a little bit. Take that extra second of hesitation where this guy might be rolling out. And Daniel Jones probably has a good shot because remember when the Giants played the Eagles last, it was by no means like a clear game at all, and Jalen Hurts was playing in that. It was a one-score game at the end, so a lot of things point in the Giants' favor. They come in with the momentum. I'm gonna pick the Eagles now because they just have a much better defense, and I think their cornerbacks are going to be an issue for the Giants. I think just are going to have people getting open. But it's going to be a run-focused game. I think the Eagles come through because of their defense. And I also have to pick against you at some point, so that's what I'm doing. Taking Philadelphia, but I'm rooting for the Giants, and I'm halfway believing it. If we're coming in next week and the Giants won, I'm not going to be surprised. I will not be surprised at all. But I'm taking the Eagles on the official record. We have the Bengals at the Bills.
I would also be curious to see what the spread is in that game.
For the Eagles and Giants?
Yeah.
7.5 to Philadelphia, which I don't believe.
God, that's
I don't believe. In fact, I've already placed a bet on the Giants against the spread.
I would too.
Even before recording this video.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a blowout. All right. Bengals and Bills. This is a tough one. This is that match that we didn't get because of the Hamlin incident. And we really don't know what to expect right here. These are two of the best teams in the AFC. Obviously, I mean, they're in the playoffs. All these teams are. But I really think that these teams are evenly matched. And, you know, I want to go with who's on fire right now. They both have bad teams, or have had bad games that they've won. They both have had really close games. The Bengals almost blew it to the Ravens, right? And the Bills almost blew it to the Dolphins. Both of those had backup quarterbacks. So these teams are pretty much evenly matched, in my opinion. It's almost just flip a coin at this point. I can't say the better quarterback. I think they're pretty close to being even right now. I can't say the better receiving team. That's pretty close. Defense, everything. You know what? I will just stick with my instinct at first and say the Bills at home.
Yeah, this one is the hardest game of the week for me to pick. For sure. I will also take away, I don't agree with this spread either. The Bills are 5-point favorites at home. I think that's too much. There's kind of only one spread I kind of agree with. This is the Chiefs being 8.5, and we'll get to the other ones. Even though you could argue that's too much. Bills 5 at home. This should be 4 points, maybe it should be a pick'em game, so 3 for the Bills. Both of these teams were not convincing at all last week, right? So we saw Buffalo looking solid, but then kind of letting up and allowing the Dolphins back into the game with Skylar Thompson, which I have to think if it was Tua, Dolphins might have won that game. But the same is true to a degree for Baltimore, right? You could say if it was Lamar Jackson, they might have won that game. Even more concretely so, because the game was decided on a play that a more athletic quarterback might have made for the Ravens, which turned into a 98-yard fumble return, which was like a crazy play of the postseason so far. But both teams eventually came through. Both favorites came through. It's a difficult one to pick, but I'm going to actually go with the Bengals in this one, even though it's kind of against the odds. And we're touting the Bills all year. The Bills kind of feel like they're getting a little bit cold at the wrong time. Josh Allen's played on MVP level for all but like 2 or 3 games in the regular season. And when he is playing at his best, he's the most dominant player in the league. But it feels like he's working, or he's baking in some needless, reckless mistakes. Like some of the things that we were concerned about when he was coming out of college are suddenly popping through. Now, it's not going to be like a symptom of a greater problem, or it's just something that happens every once in a while, but it's the wrong time for it to happen. Like, he's throwing the ball to the opposing team too much at this point in time, and you can't afford to do that against the Bengals defense that is pretty stingy. Like people like to talk about Joe Burrow, but that defense is pretty good. Defense has been good last year as well. So I'll go Bengals. I'm thinking, nothing systematically wrong with Josh Allen at all. The Bills are going to be in the playoffs for a long time to come in the future. I'm going to say the Bengals just get it done, and they're going to go play at Kansas City, which, by the way, the Chiefs will like that, because if that means they're definitely playing at home. If it's with the Bills, we have that neutral field situation, which I'd also kind of like to see in Atlanta. Yeah, so maybe you'd like to see that.
Yeah,
sounds good, right? Chiefs Bills in your own house.
Definitely.
But I'm going Bengals. I'm going Joe Burrow getting it done, taking more care of the football, which he's been doing a good job at. So Bengals win probably by 1 score. And finally, Cowboys at the Niners.
Well, both of these teams look like world beaters in the last week, because the Cowboys played the lowly Bucks. I still laugh thinking about that, because that was an absolute blowout in the playoffs. But then again, by all accounts, the 49ers blew out the Seahawks. That game was actually heading into halftime. I almost sent you a message saying, hey, you better tell the 49ers not to blow this, because it didn't look good. Like, how are you letting Geno Smith and the Seahawks do this? But in the second half, they turned on the afterburners and pretty much blew them out and won by almost 20 points. In the end, Cowboys did the same thing, except they just, after, the first 2 or 3 drives that Dak struggled with, after that, they turned on the afterburners and just demolished that Buccaneers team. Brady is done. He's absolutely done. That makes this one a little tougher, I guess, but the fact is the 49ers, to me, look like the best team in the entire NFL, and somehow they're doing it with Mr. Irrelevant at quarterback. Like, I still have a hard time believing that they could be the best team in the entire NFL with a rookie Mr. Irrelevant quarterback, but that's exactly what they're doing. That offense is that good, and since my comparison of the Georgia Bulldogs absolutely demolished a team from Texas, I'm going to say that the 49ers will absolutely demolish a team from Texas right here.
As they should. Okay, couple things I have to say about this before I give my prediction, and I think you can guess what my prediction is going to be, but I have to give a quick exposition about this. Okay, so number one, they're doing it despite the rookie quarterback. It's gotta stop. Okay, Brock Purdy is the real deal. In fact, Brock Purdy's the starter next year. He's the starter. Wow. He's won the job. It's done. Jimmy Garoppolo, thank you. You're getting hurt too much. Go to Miami. Trey Lance, okay, you're young, you can stick around, you have maybe a battle in camp. You got 2 guys on rookie contracts, okay? One of them we know is fantastic. The other one has potential to be even more fantastic. best situation you could ask for, right? You're going to come out of this with a phenomenal young quarterback either way. And when it gets time in 2 to 3 years to pay one of them, you pay one of them, whichever one really, won the job. But going into next year is Brock Purdy's job. It has to be Brock Purdy's job. I don't want to hear anyone talk about Tom Brady. I don't even want to talk about Aaron Rodgers anymore in San Francisco. We got the guy. The man led the league in passer rating in the regular season, leading the league in passer rating in the postseason. This is going to redefine how people look at drafting quarterbacks. The whole Mr. Irrelevant thing, the whole rookie thing, I don't care. He's the best quarterback that's taken the field for the 49ers for a long time. Okay? He's a very similar player to Garoppolo, but he's not gotten hurt yet. And they're actually trusting him more with the downfield throws for some reason. I don't know why that is, but they are. He's making the plays when it matters. He can make great plays when he has to. He's a starter. And I'm not going to look at him as a rookie anymore. I'm not going to take this as a crutch anymore. Oh, the Niners are great, but there's no. No more but Brock Purdy. The Niners are great. They have a great quarterback. They're going to beat Dallas. My second point. They are favored by 3.5 points. Are you kidding me? They're at home. That means they're saying that's a 1 point game. This is basically a pick'em on neutral field, says Vegas. What? How do you come to... This is the closest game of the weekend. Okay, the Cowboys beat the Bucs, right? The Bucs are terrible. We know the Bucs are terrible. They can't produce anything, right? The Cowboys are probably the most volatile team we have in the league. Right? They go and beat Philadelphia, then they come back and throw pick six to Washington and lose in terrible fashion. Okay, they go play a terrible Tampa Bay team and they win kind of convincingly. What makes you think that they should be considered like even with the Niners? This is all you've seen. They've won 11 straight. Is it really the quarterback? Is it really just the reputation of the draft pick? Because, listen, if Brock Purdy... Okay, let me give you this scenario, right? Brock Purdy... Switch him with Kenny Pickett. Brock Purdy was the first quarterback off the board. They picked him with the first round pick. Does anyone have this talk? No? Oh, but it's Brock Purdy. It's rookie. No, they don't. Because he's a first round pick, right? But here's the thing. Once you're drafted, you're drafted. Number doesn't matter, okay? Alex Smith, Aaron Rodgers. Doesn't matter where you get drafted. Tom Brady went in the 6th round. Joe Montana went in the 3rd round. It doesn't matter where you got drafted as soon as you take your first step on the field. So I don't get why this is still like hanging over their head so much that it's this Mr. Irrelevant thing. He's not playing like it. He's not shown nothing to demonstrate it. People talk about nothing else with the Niners and like, oh, this is their big weakness. Anytime now the weak rookie is going to come through. Anytime now he's going to show why he's Mr. Relevant. Why? Doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. Okay, I don't get it. People are terrible at evaluating quarterbacks. We know the league is awful at evaluating quarterbacks. In fact, about 30% of first-round quarterbacks are starters after 2 to 3 years. They're not good at scouting quarterbacks. But I think they just don't want to admit it. It's a crapshoot. That's what it is. Brock Purdy's great. Niners win. 3.5 points is ridiculous. I'm definitely betting Niners against the spread for this one. I don't get how this number comes to be. I just don't see it. Doesn't make sense to me. We've seen it last year. They played last year in the playoffs.
Yeah. I got a rebuttal for you, though. I think a lot of the analysts out there are just going off of the trends that we've never seen a Mr. Irrelevant. We have seen a last round pick work out before. I mean, obviously, he just got blew out this past week, but it's very rare. Like, it is extremely rare to see a last round quarterback actually succeed at that level. Now, I'll stop doubting him. I'm not even saying I'm doubting him because I just said they are the best team in the NFL. But it's just you expect it to fall apart at some point with a guy like that who wasn't highly scouted. You know, he did nothing amazing in college. You know, he didn't light any world on fire at all. So him going that late in draft was also expected. Some people thought maybe he would be undrafted and just signed to a practice squad somewhere. But here he is. He is absolutely excelling. I don't doubt him at this point. I think he's going to be serviceable. I don't think he's going to be the next Aaron Rodgers or anything. But with the 49ers, he can absolutely excel. I don't think he has the exact same success if you throw him on the Jets or a team like that, because he's just not set up to succeed. And I think that's what it is. But I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, and I'm not... I don't even know that I'm expecting him to fail. I'm just saying it's very possible that it falls apart at some point, because of that's just how these trends usually work. But then again, it's on the 49ers, and the 49ers are set up to succeed. You got probably the best coach in the league, and he can get the best out of everyone, whether it's running backs or wide receivers or quarterbacks. He's just that good at his job. And I think that's another thing, too, is that Shanahan is so good, and we've seen him succeed with quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers that could not succeed in other places. So they go to Shanahan, and somehow they're a superstar. I mean, Raheem Mostert for running backs, No, he failed on a lot of squads before, and then he came out there and became a superstar. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, I guess at one point in time he was the heir apparent to Tom Brady, but Belichick said he's not worth fighting for in the end, and he goes out there and goes all the way to a Super Bowl, because that's a team that is set up to succeed regardless of the players. It seems that it's just plug and play. But I don't know. I think in the end we could see big things out of Brock Purdy. He could actually be. I think it's a big statement at this point to say that he is absolutely your starter next season. I don't know if I believe that until at least training camp next season. But yeah.
But how do you take him out? How do you take him out after this? After being, by every single thing we can measure, like for the last 6 weeks, the best quarterback in the NFL. How do you take him out? I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah, it is.
It's really difficult. I don't know.
That's a decision that Shanahan's going to have to make. But I have confidence that no matter what decision he makes, it's going to work out. So leave him or don't. You're still going to win. That's what Shanahan does.
Yeah, seems like people really expect him, like, any day now is gonna come that game where he just goes up in flames and he throws 5 picks like runs around like a deer in headlights, 76 passing yards and like 5 picks or something. That's not happening. That's not gonna happen. I know people expect it. Yeah, of course, listen, the Cowboys are a solid team, and when they're playing their best game, they have a chance to win this. It's not a pick'em game by any means, and it's not like, they have a much better quarterback or anything. They have maybe a bit more experience, a little bit more proven quarterback on the NFL level. But man, these guys have about the same amount of playoff success. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I am not sure. The Niners should have a better defense, even though the Cowboys' defense is great. They should have better pass catchers, even though the Cowboys' pass catchers are good. And they should have a better running game, even though the Cowboys' running game is good. I don't know what makes people like. Yeah, Dak had a good game. It was Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
Tampa Bay sucks.
They do.
He played awful against Washington. He's an up and down quarterback. You know who's not? Brock Purdy. He's had only up games so far, right?
Yeah.
So there's a trend and a cycle for you to analyze. What happens to a quarterback after like 7 games of playing fantastic and having a 110 passer rating? A trend would say, they're going to do that again in the 8th game. His draft position should not affect that. But that's all I have to say.
Yeah,
I'm taking Niners. I'm going Brock Purdy.
I think a lot of people are expecting like Mike White, that he had some great games, but he's gonna fall apart at some point. That's what it is. Mike White is the trend of late round quarterbacks that succeed at first and then fall apart. He's the example there that everybody's looking toward.
That's true. I get it, right? I'm kind of violating my own rule a little bit when I say, I only ever judge a quarterback after at least 3 years. And I usually say that in the negative sense when a quarterback gets panned for being a bust after starting half of a season. Happened to Tua, for example. I say, listen, 3 full years before that, I'm not judging. This should be the case as well in this case, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, could he just fall off and kind of regress to being a mediocre quarterback? Possible, but kind of unlikely, right? Like, it doesn't usually go that way. Like, players don't just become horrifically worse for no reason. Especially young quarterbacks don't. Really, old quarterbacks, yeah, they do sometimes, but young quarterbacks don't really do that all that much. I don't know.
Carson Wentz, maybe?
Yeah, but big injury, change of team, lost his starting spot, you know. A lot of things that kind of came into his way there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Purdy's playing like he's a... I know this is not the, like, popular choice, but there's still something to the pro-style quarterback. Nobody wants them. I know they're falling down draft boards because everyone sees Josh Allen, everyone sees Lamar Jackson, and they're like, okay, we need a quarterback who's, you know, 6'5", 250, he needs to be built like a linebacker. If the quarterback is not built like Julius Peppers, don't even bother.
Yeah, well, you guys got Trey Lance because of that, yeah. Yeah,
exactly. He has to run a 4.4, be like the fastest guy on offense. No, the quarterback has to throw the ball. Okay? I would rather have a quarterback that looks like a regular guy, friggin' Subway employee, but can really throw the ball and understand the game mentally, than the greatest athlete of all time who has never developed that in college because he hasn't had to. Okay? That's why I was skeptical about the Trey Lance pick the whole time. Yes, the potential's there, right? But those are hard to develop, okay? If you're getting proper pro-style quarterback who's playing the position in the way that he will play it in the NFL, it transitions better. The success chances are better. Yeah, you don't have the same ceiling as a Josh Allen, but man, you can have a top 5 quarterback there without as much of the downside, much of the risk, and you don't even have to trade up for them because no one takes him first overall anymore because it's not cool enough to just be a good passer. So that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Purdy's a starter no matter what. No matter what happens in this game, next games, Purdy has to go into next year as the starter. It has to be his job to lose. I think it would be unwise to try and force in Trey Lance now. Yeah, the potential is always promising, but you've seen it. You can beat every team in the league with this current team, with this current quarterback in it. Why would you change that? If it wasn't for the injuries, they should have never even gone off of Jimmy Garoppolo because we've seen the same cases. The same thing is true. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out, by the way, next year. We'll see where he ends up.
I think he'll be a backup.
Someone's going to pay him to be a starter.
You think?
Because, yeah, it always happens. Listen, he still has enough. Theoretically, he has like 5-6 years left easily, right? Yeah, he has the injury history, and that's the big downside. But someone's going to work him out. Okay, he's good. You know, passive physical. They're going to pay him to be a starter because when he does play, he's not hurt. He is very much an above average starting quarterback, and that goes for good money. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be the injury concern. But someone's going to bank on him. Someone's going to give him a try for a year or two, be it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more of a contender. I'm thinking Jets. I'm thinking Titans. Maybe Miami, depending on how like Tua's long-term situation is actually looking. There are teams that are going to be interested in him.
I think the Jets need to just swing for the fences and try to pick up one of those elite quarterbacks coming into the league this year. I would go ahead and put money right now. If Garoppolo went to the Jets, I would put money on them having a losing season next year. I just couldn't see it working out.
Garoppolo on the I mean, it's a far-fetched thing. I'll definitely bet against it. But Garoppolo on the Jets. Okay, let's do this, right? Mm-hmm. Let's make a bet. Let's make this an official bet. Even though it's far-fetched and it probably won't happen. If Jimmy Garoppolo goes to the Jets, I will add their condition that he has to start at least 15 games. Because if he gets hurt, like halfway through the season, which he is likely to do, it doesn't matter. If he starts at least 15 of those games, Jets make the playoffs.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that bet.
They damn near did it this year with a mix of Zach Wilson and Mike White. They missed it by a game.
Yeah.
They have a good defense.
Yes, that's it. That's the defense there.
They have a great rookie receiver. They have a great rookie running back who got hurt.
Yeah.
A lot of talent coming out.
Which maybe that's what you need. You need for a Garoppolo, you need a defense that can get the ball in your hands as many times as possible in a game.
that's the system he comes from.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, second thing, you have a topic to discuss because we only have 4 games. We're going to add like some kind of fun topics on it. So what do we have today?
Yeah, I like to compare players all the time. One of my favorite things to do is when a draft prospect is coming into the league, I want to make that pro comparison, and everybody makes horrible pro comparisons because you end up seeing some backup, like you'll have Bryce Young this year. Somebody's gonna be like, well, his pro comparison is Mike White, not saying that's exactly a comparison, but it's gonna be like a backup somewhere. Nobody wants to compare really good guys to really good guys for some reason when they're unproven, and it really drives me mad because you made the comparison to Steve Young. Bryce Young is probably more Steve Young than any of the guys they're gonna throw out there in the end, right? Like, it's this sort of...
I made that comparison because his name is Young.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not quite, right? He's not as mobile, he's right-handed, but
You think Bryce is not as mobile?
Bryce is not as mobile as Steve. He's still a good thrower and he's mobile enough, but he's not really a good. It's not really a good comparison.
How tall was Steve Young?
He's not super tall, like 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah. I think Bryce Young's like 5'11".
Not an amazing statue, yeah.
I don't know. I would say Bryce Young's comparison at this point in time was probably Kyler, maybe. He's probably going to be better than Kyler, but that's probably...
But that's just because of the height?
Yeah, the height. Well, I guess he's not really as, like you said, he's not as mobile as Kyler, but who else do you compare him to?
I mean, see, the thing
Daniel
is,
Jones,
when you give a name and people associate how good that player is with how good you think Bryce Young is, right?
Yeah.
So purely stylistically, I'd might go Baker Mayfield.
Ooh.
That does not mean that Bryce Young is going to be as bad as Baker, by the way, and go jumping around. I think he's going to be very good. Mm-hmm. You could say Drew Brees. That doesn't mean Bryce Young is going to have the success as Drew Brees is going to have. In fact, a pro comparison for Baker Mayfield was Drew Brees when he came into the league. So that's why you have to be careful with the pro comparisons. A lot of people think it to mean they're gonna have this type of success. They're gonna be as good as that player.
And that's
it's
what
a purely stylistic expression.
I would rather put out their upside rather than their downside. Like, this guy's gonna be more of Doug Flutie or Colt McCoy. Like, no, that's not fun though. And this right here is fun. We're gonna make some comparisons. We're gonna look at quarterbacks and say, who is that quarterback's nemesis in the NFL? Now, I have paired these players up. I have players I think that are pretty similar, and they all have some kind of tie in their past that puts them together, like some sort of similarity that puts these guys together. Now, I'm going to call out the names that I have. First of all, I'm going to ask you, do you agree? Do you have a better pick that you could match these guys up with? And who will have the better career in the end? All right.
Hit me with the first pair.
All right. I'll go ahead and say this. In the past, you would have saw like Cam Newton and Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
Mariota and Jameis Winston because the draft.
For sure.
Yeah. Ryan and Flacco, whatever. I will start with. Let's go with the lower level guys. Mac Jones and Zach Wilson. What do you think about that? Do you agree that would be Mac Jones' nemesis, Zach Wilson?
Feels like a very made-up rivalry. I get their, same draft class. They're in the same division. In theory, it makes sense. But I think what is needed for like a real rivalry to form is for both of them to be good and competitive.
Yeah, that's...
I think it disqualifies it as being a proper like historic rivalry if they haven't met in the playoffs, right? I think there has to be playoff clashes there. So you get the Brady and Peyton thing. If they never play in the playoffs, if they don't make the playoffs a whole lot, it doesn't really count. Mahomes and Allen, kind of the same thing. So this rivalry, I don't think you have a very strong case for this one because both these guys, especially Zach Wilson, needs to win the starting spot first and foremost. Then they're both in the strong division. and they need to get to a higher level with their teams, get them to the playoffs, and actually compete for stuff, compete with each other for division titles and for playoff wins. Then it's possible because they come from the same class, but right now there's not a big connection there.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a better connection for either quarterback?
Yeah, Mike White and Zach Wilson.
I guess that makes sense, yeah.
There's one.
I think they're both going to be out of a job soon, but so it doesn't really matter.
Might be.
All right, let's see. These guys, they're. I guess they have faced at least once or twice in the playoffs. The only connection they have is that they were drafted in the same round, and they have a similar play style, although they were drafted 5 years apart. And it was the only nemesis I could find for Russell Wilson would be Dak Prescott. Do you agree with that?
Dak and Russell.
Mm-hmm. I know it's a difference, a big difference, 5 years apart, but similar play style, and they were both third-round draft picks.
Okay, here's one thing I'll say that they do have in common, right? They are both very extremely unlikable people by all means for some reason, right? He's like one guy is like he's Russell Wilson, and the other guy is just like, he's the quarterback of America's team, right? He's basically Jesus Christ, and he has to be in every commercial even though he's done nothing on the field. I think the problem with this one is that like their best sort of times in their career don't overlap as much, right? Mm. Wilson and Seattle were at their best when Dak wasn't in the league yet. I think that's a big problem. When they went to Super Bowls and NFC Championship games and made waves in the playoffs with the Legion of Boom and everything, Dak was not yet in the NFL. And once Dak started getting drafted and the Cowboys actually started making the playoffs from 2016-17, the Seahawks were already kind of on the way down a little bit. Right? They were falling off slightly. They haven't met that many times. Like, to me, a much better rivalry, for example, for Russell Wilson could have been it could have been Kaepernick back then, but Kaepernick didn't make it for very long. Mm-hmm. Kyler could have been a better one if the Cardinals had been good and he actually stayed in Seattle as well. Something within the division, right? Because Russell Wilson had the division on lock for a long time. So the most sort of natural rivalry would have been the quarterback that came in on the next rising team and took that team places. Could have been Garoppolo, or whoever the Rams quarterback would have, Jared Goff, maybe. I don't know. None of those really make sense now. Biggest rival for Russell Wilson now is probably most of his own teams and coaching staff. And for Dak, I can actually see Dak and Jalen Hurts becoming a thing, or Dak and Daniel Jones, either one, because both of those teams and those quarterbacks might be relevant for a long time, and the Cowboys, by nature of their name, will be relevant. Doesn't matter how they play. So I can see Dak. Let's go Dak and Jalen Hurts. How about that? Let's go with that. Jalen Hurts needs one, so I'm going Dak.
All right. That kind of hurts in one of my future picks, but as we move along here,
you wanted Hurts and Tua?
Yes, of course. Well, I mean, there goes.
I have a contingency for that as well when we get there.
I guess, all right, we'll do that. The connections are getting stronger as we go along. So, Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. The only thing that ties them really is the Heisman winners. They're both Heisman winners, and their style of play. Even though they were drafted, what was it? 1 year? Yeah, 1 year apart, right? Yeah.
Also, their questionable contract negotiation habits.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's for sure. And who knows if they're going to be on their current teams for very long. Do you agree, Kyler, his most close rival in the league right now is Lamar Jackson?
So, lack of direct confrontation is, again, the issue there. Mm-hmm. Different conferences. Yes. Kyler, like the Cardinals, are bad now. They were good for a single year. Lamar and the Ravens were good for maybe 2 years, and they didn't overlap. I like the parallel of both of them having the weird contract situation going, though, with Kyler kind of they put in this contract that he needs to study for 20 hours a week.
Obviously,
you do that to a middle schooler, right?
Yeah.
That's like in 8th grade when they make like a class contract or something, and the teacher's like, okay, we're gonna have these are the behavior rules. You have to act like this, and you get good noodle stars if you do. You kind of don't expect to have to do that with the first overall pick, right? Who you're about to pay hundreds of millions of dollars.
But apparently there's a problem with him not remembering plays if they put that in there.
Apparently. And I guarantee you that is part of why Cliff Kingsbury and that whole Cardinals front office is kind of dissolving into thin air because, well, they're financially committed to Kyler Murray. And I can tell you one thing, Kyler Murray probably doesn't want to play for Cliff Kingsbury because Cliff Kingsbury is the one who made that thing happen in the contract. That doesn't come from the GM, right? GM doesn't see him practice every day, doesn't sit with him in the film room and like understand, like see that he's like maybe not studying as now, but to understand what's going on. That comes from the coaches. And I'm sure Kyler Murray wants to have some input on who his next coach is going to be. If he's the wisest decision maker in that case, I don't know. If the Cardinals kind of shot themselves in the foot in investing so much into him, possible. I wouldn't mind at all because, Cardinals can lose all they want. I'm not going to complain. And Lamar Jackson, bit of a different situation, but you also kind of can't adjourn like your contract negotiations to after the season. And now that you're in the playoffs, bring that up as a topic of why you're like holding out or like pseudo holding out or not really playing through injury that you otherwise would play through. I don't know. The Jackson situation to me is a bit more murky. So if anything, I don't think they're rivals as much as like they're pulling on the same string here, in a weird way. But need more direct confrontation to call them proper rivals. You could say, yeah, they're rivals because they play the same way, and like who's going to be the poster child example for that style quarterback coming into the league? Is it going to be Kyler or Lamar? And it's probably going to be Lamar. But I don't think there's a strong case for rivalry there either.
Well, let's get into, you brought it up earlier, Allen and Mahomes.
I want to say this for Lamar. I want it to be Burrow and Lamar, maybe Pickett and Lamar. Those I want to see if Lamar actually stays in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is some ties there. I mean, because the divisions and whatnot. Definitely not play style, I'll tell you that though. Speaking of play style, Allen and Mahomes, and the reason they are tied together is because they've kind of had a feud through social media in the past, and they both basically rose to prominence in the NFL around the same time. They both can throw a ball 80 yards. Probably, would you agree, the two biggest arms in the NFL right now?
I throw Herbert in there, but other than that, yes.
Yeah. And also, they are fighting over MVP awards each season. So, I think they have to go down. I think this will go down in history many years into the future as a rivalry amongst these two. I think this is your Peyton and Brady, something to that effect of the future.
Absolutely, yeah. This one's a slam dunk pick. This one's great. 100% agree with that. This is already ongoing. We've already had the backstory as well, the playoff games, famously last year's coin flip game. We've had them face off in the regular season, the Bills getting back on them, and they might play again next week or the week after in the conference championship. We might see them play again, and we're going to see them play a lot against each other in the future because they're both elite on elite teams. Both of these guys are competing for MVPs, and both of them are going to compete for AFC championships in the future. That is exactly the stuff that those rivalries are made of, and these two are perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Buffalo, Kansas City. I like both teams, so it's much more pleasant for me to look at than friggin' Broncos and Patriots, who I can't stand either of them. So at least it's more entertaining. I can at least root for whoever comes out on top. Like both players, like both teams, so... Yes, this one's great. I 100% support and endorse this one.
Man, I should have saved that one for the main event then. We talked about earlier Tua and Hurts. Now they have probably the strongest ties on the list, right? They go all the way back to actually there is one more on the list that has a stronger tie, but they go back to the beginnings of their college career when Tua eventually supplanted Hurts as the starter, and Hurts had to sit back up for an entire season until he went out to Oklahoma, and then they got to play again in the the first round of the playoffs that year. Both drafted the same year, both almost as close as you can get to equivalent in draft stock. But I know that you don't like that they are not in the same conference, so tell me what you think about Tua versus Hurts.
Yep, not being in the same conference is an issue. There is a very good basis for this one, so I like it. I have one better proposition, I think, but I like this one, and it is entirely possible to happen, but it's uncertain, right? Mahomes and Allen is already ongoing, slam dunk, we're good. Mm-hmm. This one is uncertain for both players. Now, Tua, you don't know, is his head ever going to get right? And I mean that in the physical sense, is he stop going to get knocked out of games all the time and actually become that starting quarterback we know he can be and take that franchise to success, which he's shown that he can do. And for Jalen Hurts, this is again my personal thing. A lot of people are going to say this is blasphemous. I have no idea if Jalen Hurts is going to be a starter in 3 years. In fact, the odds suggest that he won't. Because this style of quarterback, we've seen this one too many times. This kind of breakout season. In fact, we're seeing Kyler and Lamar Jackson on the downtrend of that exact situation right now. We've seen it. We've seen Kaepernick. We've seen Cam Newton. We've seen Robert Griffin. We've seen it happen so many times. It's possible, that he's going to develop into a good pocket passer, make that part of his game, and become a very good quarterback. Josh Allen's done that, He's become a great pocket passer, and he still has an extra element. That makes him incredibly dangerous. Carson Wentz never managed to do it. Robert Griffin never managed to do it. If Jalen Hurts manages to do it, he'll be good for a long time. Tua, the health is the concern. We know he's a good passer, a great starting quarterback, and he's in the right system now with Mike McDaniel and Miami to be very successful. So yes, these two teams could play in Super Bowls over the next 5 years if both of those sides of the story work out that way. But it's a bit difficult. I have a better one for Tua, and it's Justin Herbert. Because, in fact, they were in debate for the same draft spot. Remember that, right? They were kind of in the same grade. Okay, everyone's kind of, Joe Burrow, probably after the season he had, he's going to go number one. But after that, it was Herbert, and it was Tua, and that debate is still going on. Okay, every time Tua plays badly now, people come out on Twitter and be like, see, I told you Herbert was the right pick. Never compare Herbert and Burrow again. Herbert and Tua again. What do you want to say? And I'm sure it's going to go the other way around again. And I'm sure that these two teams are going to meet in the playoffs. Hopefully, if Tua can stay healthy and play, they are going to be good games. Mm-hmm. So to me, they are in the same conference. They are both on young, up-and-coming teams if the Chargers figure their coaching stuff out and Tua stays healthy. To me, that's the better one because they had the narrative planted as they came into the league with the draft spot thing. I don't think there's any personal animosity between them at all, but with fans, there's for sure. Absolutely. Because a lot of people have a lot of opinions when it comes to quarterbacks being drafted, and there's diehard Herbert guys, there's diehard Tua guys. I was more on the Tua side then, but that might have been Alabama bias, and I kind of understand that I wasn't entirely correct, and Herbert is most certainly the better quarterback, but Tua's still fantastic. And I think that one could be a good one.
Mm-hmm. That actually takes care of the next one also, because I had Herbert versus Burrow, and you pretty much you would rather have Herbert versus Tua. And
thing is, I think in the AFC you can draw so many of these lines because if you look at the top 6 quarterbacks in the NFL. And just assume this year Aaron Rodgers, we take Aaron Rodgers out because he had a bad year. We don't know if he's coming back or whatever. Top 7 quarterbacks kind of leaving Aaron Rodgers out of the equation. You may have 7 AFC quarterbacks. Okay, and you got Herbert, you got Burrow, you got Allen and Mahomes. You have maybe Tua, you have maybe Lamar. All these are young guys, by the way. They're getting better. the most promising players in the NFC to usurp that are Jalen Hurts and, dare I say, Brock Purdy over the next 1 or 2 years. So the AFC is stacked. There's going to be a lot of these playoff matchups. Trevor Lawrence, forgot to mention Trevor Lawrence. He's there as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You can put Lawrence and Burrow. Hell, put Lawrence with Herbert after this game.
Well,
right? There's a lot of combinations there, and we'll see how it works out.
Well, speaking of Lawrence, this is the deepest roots of any of these matchups because Justin Fields grew up right down the street from Lawrence. They played in schools probably, I would say, 10 miles apart, maybe 15 at the most. They played against each other all through Pop Warner, high school, college, and now they're in the NFL. And I know that they're in different conferences, but they're going to play each other. And obviously, at least every, 4 years or whatever.
It might be 8 years because they're different conferences.
Yeah. Is it? But you still alternate conference.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure.
So
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years. You're right. 4 years.
And I think they're also going to have a rivalry in the playoffs at some point. Like, these guys are just drawn together by destiny, in my opinion. They are going to always end up being on the field with each other at some point in time. I think eventually the Bears figure it out, and they end up making some playoff runs too. Whether or not they need another coach at this point, who knows? But I got Lawrence and Fields, and you may want to throw Lawrence in that other category like you were earlier, but for me, there is no stronger rivalry than Lawrence versus Fields.
On paper, it has the strongest legs to stand on, for sure. This has the best narrative story that's been built for the longest time. And it's meant to be like that, but really the problem is the situations they're in right now, specifically Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. If by some miracle, the Bears pick Bryce Young first overall, like, it's possible, because you have a generational quarterback, you might pick him. Ship Justin Fields to exactly the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
We've got
Perfect.
a deal, right?
That would be amazing.
We've got a thing, because the Titans might make the playoffs with Justin Fields this year, and that last game, for the playoff spot, that would have been the perfect way to kick things off.
This needs to happen.
If that exactly comes through, I hope it happens. Actually, I really hope it does, because I want to see that. That would be amazing. But with the situation that Fields is now in, he didn't even play bad. How many times does it happen? A team ends up with the first overall pick, and they don't really have a big need to draft a quarterback. That kind of doesn't happen. Yeah, the Jaguars did it last year actually. But that was kind of an Urban Meyer situation. That's the exception, right? That's the rarity. I think the Browns also did it when they picked Mayfield and then Myles Garrett back-to-back years. But it doesn't happen all that much. Bears have a lot of needs. Quarterback is not the biggest one, but quarterback's also the biggest push that you can give your team by bringing in a generational quarterback like Trevor Lawrence and like potentially Bryce Young. So I think it is possible they take Bryce Young. They can't resist. Then Justin Fields has to go somewhere else, and why not Tennessee? That spot is open.
Yes, perfect.
If that happens, we all want it to happen, then yeah, this is perfect. Otherwise, very much depends on where Justin Fields actually goes. Because if they're not playing in big games, it's hard to justify. If we're going to see Trevor Lawrence year in, year out playing Herbert and Burrow and Allen and Mahomes and Tua for all these meaningful AFC playoff games, it's difficult to draw a real rivalry with him and Justin Fields, who's sitting at the bottom of the NFC.
Yeah, and we don't see the Bears making the Super Bowl anytime soon, which we could see that for the Jaguars for sure, but the Bears are going to need a lot of work. That would be a wonderful scenario, and that would make my entire season if that happened. Maybe an honorable mention to who is Purdy's going to be, who's his rival going to be coming up, since apparently he's going to be the
Roger Goodell, after he goes to 5 straight Super Bowls, and the NFL needs a different team for TV rates. It's going to be a Purdy versus Roger Goodell trying to not get the Niners to go to the Super Bowl again.
Well, I think you mentioned it off air maybe last week, but I think the Falcons are going to be good again one day, and it could exactly be Ritter, because they were both late round picks in the same draft, and I think Ritter's going to work out. I know a lot of Falcons fans are already getting their high hopes of, like, we got to trade up to get Bryce, but come on, give the guy at least a couple seasons to figure it out. Like, and he's showing flashes now. He's going to be good, in my opinion. Like, I've had faith in him this whole time. I mean, look what he played well against the Bucs. You could say that they were resting up for the playoffs if you want, but the Bucs are just bad, so they would have lost that game either way, in my opinion. But yeah, I think in the future we may see Ritter versus Purdy coming up, so that'd be cool.
I just came up with one really good one as well.
What you got?
Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. They're in the same division now, same college, won the Heisman, first overall pick when they should not have been.
Yeah.
Maybe if Baker keeps starting for the Rams, who knows? They might draft a quarterback. Matthew Stafford might come back. A lot of ifs, but it's possible.
Yeah.
That would fit.
The only thing that would be better than that would be if we can get Tua to the Commanders or something, which that's also a possibility, right? Like, after his injuries,
Problem is, though, if he's healthy, Miami's going to keep him. If he's not healthy, no one else going to trade for him.
Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, I don't know. He could pull it together, right? Like, he is injury prone. I mean, he has been since college. He had that hip issue that actually took him out of a lot of games, and that was the reason Alabama didn't go to the playoffs his last season there.
That's the reason he didn't come in as the number one quarterback. Mm-hmm. That combined with Joe Burrow's season is before that everyone on earth, it was tank for Tua. He was going to go first overall unanimously, and then those two things happened.
Yep, that's it. So that would be awesome to see, though. I mean, if it did work out that way and he ends up with the Commanders, that'd be great. I think he makes that team a lot better. And then he gets to play Hurts at least twice a year, sometimes 3.
True, yeah. But I kind of don't want it to happen because I don't like the Commanders that much. I like the Dolphins, though, and obviously I like Tua a lot, so I want to root for him. Yeah. And he fits the system really well.
There's definitely no chance of Hurts going to that division. I don't see Belichick reaching out for Hurts or anything, and I don't see the Eagles letting him go at this point.
Mac Jones and Tua, that rivalry.
But, man, I can't stop thinking about if Fields ends up on the Texans. That would be so good. So good.
Texans or Titans even,
yeah.
Either one.
Yeah.
Colts, there's 3 games that need a quarterback. Just any of send them to one of those. We need it to happen.
Yeah.
And those teams need quarterbacks, by the way, because if they don't, the Jaguars are going to dominate for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
All these teams need to find their quarterback and fast.
I'm still holding out hopes that Derek Carr ends up on the Colts. Not because I want to see it. It's just the prediction that I made out of the blue, and it becomes more and more likely as time goes on. So
the odds have increased a lot since you first brought that up.
Exactly. Yeah.
An awful lot.
Yeah.
It's scary.
I just said it because the Colts were in dire straits of flipping through quarterbacks, and I was like, Derek Carr. Yeah, he seems right.
Next up.
Yep.
Next up. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Was it all the pairs, or do you have another one?
No, that's it.
Okay, cool. So next week, obviously, conference championship picks, and we're going to have a quiz. I'm going to prepare an NFL trivia quiz. We've done those in the past.
Ooh.
I have some pretty good questions already, but I'm going to round those out over the week. It's going to be good. And it's going to be interactive, so viewers can play along. You could have played along with this one as well. You can ask the question and then get the answer and see if you can outscore Smokey in an NFL quiz.
Probably can, because when you start asking like about defensive players or guys from 30 years ago, I get lost though.
Okay, I'll try to make it bearable. But I think it'll be good. I think it'll be pretty good. So for now, we're done. Leave us your picks for these 4 games and maybe quarterback rivalry ideas. If you have anyone to match up with Purdy or Kyler or Ritter that you think fits well, let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Drop us a like on the video, and we're going to see you in the next one.
Deuces.